Hi, everyone. Can you guys hear me all right? All right. My name is Sean. I'm a field engineer at Instabug, and I have the pleasure of working with some of the most, most popular or most recognizable mobile teams out there in the market today. We help companies all over the world improve the quality of their mobile apps. And today, I'm going to talk to you about how you can do more than just the basics when it comes to monitoring the performance and quality of your apps. Before we get into it, I want to just give you a little bit of an overview of Instabug in case you're not familiar with us. So at Instabug, we work with more than 25,000 app teams to help them improve mobile app performance and stability. And so far, our SDK has been deployed on nearly 3 billion devices worldwide. Chances are you folks are using an app on your phone today that has Instabug installed. We've continued to grow this number over the last couple of years as we've introduced new products. So back when we first launched in 2016, we were known as a bug reporting tool. Right? We launched crash reporting in 2017, in-app surveys in 2019, and then in 2020, we introduced application performance monitoring. And this fall, we added 3 brand new products to our lineup. We added session replay, app store rating and review management, and new capabilities to help with release management. And these products, they've largely been a reaction to changes that we've been seeing in the market over the last 10 years or so. And these changes that we've seen, well, they've been across users, across developers, and across teams that build mobile apps. So first, I want to talk to you a little bit about user expectations and some of the trends that we've seen when it comes to mobile. So in the past, when someone downloaded your app and they were using it, they might have been okay if your app was a bit slow or if they were seeing spinners. Today, expectations are much higher, right? They expect everything to be super snappy. And same with stability, right? Historically, users may have tolerated your app if it was unstable, so long as they could accomplish the core task. But today, more than 80% of users will uninstall an app if they think it's unstable. There's just a really low tolerance for stability and performance issues. And a lot of this has to do with those big apps out there today, like Instagram, like Snapchat, and YouTube. Right? These apps have set the bar so high when it comes to quality that users have the same expectations of every app that they install on their phone. So this is why you need to be looking at more than just the basics, and today I'm going to help you understand what some of those metrics are and how you can do more than just looking at the crash-free rate. Now, there have been changes on the developer side as well. Previously, it might have been okay to do testing in the wild, right, to test things in production. Now, you guys are shifting left, where you're doing a lot of your testing as part of your CI pipeline before deployment. And when you do a rollout of new builds and features, teams are typically doing it only to a fraction of their user base. Right? You're using tools like Launch Darkly and feature flags so you can really control who has access to those new capabilities. And if there's problems, you have a quick and easy way to turn those off. When you think about how teams are monitoring the quality of their apps today and how these teams work together, not much has changed. Right? They've still been only using crash-free rate as their primary KPI. In fact, most companies are only doing this today. They're using this single KPI today to track the quality of your apps, and that needs to change. Right? And that's what I'm going to talk to you about today. I'm going to present some ideas about how you folks can do more than just the simple crash-free rate. Of course, the crash-free rate is still a really important metric. Right? It only provides a limited view, though, into the quality of your applications. If you think about the apps that you have on your phone today, it's pretty unlikely you're seeing regular crashes. But you probably felt apps that you feel are pretty slow or sluggish, right? They're not ending in a crash, but you think, wow, this app isn't performing as well as it could be. So what you need to be doing is thinking about the user experience and the quality of your apps in 2 buckets, right? The quantitative metrics and then the qualitative ones. Now, the quantitative indicators, you're probably tracking some of these today, right? Non-fatal errors, crashes, and on Android, you're also looking at ANRs. These are the typical things that you're monitoring today as part of your crash-free rate. But there are others that you should start to measure as well. One of the first metrics, if you're not already doing it, is looking at app launch time. This is probably the most important, right? For a new user of your app, it's the first impression when they download and they tap on that icon for the first time. It's also a metric that the app stores are paying particular attention to, right? Google especially, they're looking at the app launch time for your apps and using that to rank your placement in search results. The second is screen loading, right? Obviously, the initial load time of your app is important, but subsequent screen loads are just as critical. especially if you're using push notifications to drive people into your apps. They may not be coming into that main home screen that you expect, right? They could be getting dropped into a messages component of your app or a second screen. And then, of course, when you're thinking about screen performance, you also need to be mindful of app hangs, right? UI hangs and app hangs, right? And these are when essentially your app is unresponsive for 3 seconds. And of course, the worst case scenario here is when it turns into an ANR and the operating system is going to pop that nasty little dialog and ask our users if they want to force close your app. And finally, this is something that we've recently launched, and it's a relatively new concept. It's what we're calling a user termination. You all have probably used an app, and it's not working, it's not responding, it's a little bit frozen. You swipe up, you close it, and then you immediately relaunch it. That's what we call a user termination. And many tools out there in the market today, they lack capturing this critical insight. Usually when they start using Instabug for the first time, they're actually really surprised to see the number of user terminations that are happening with their apps. So instead of simply looking at the non-fatals, crashes, and ANRs, there are actually 8 critical KPIs that you should be looking at when it comes to quantitative metrics for your apps. Let's talk a little bit more about the qualitative measures as well when it comes to understanding what your users are facing. So obviously your customer support teams or your help desk, that's a really important channel, right? You get some vocal users that are willing to write in an email, share their feedback. I'm sure some of you folks are also looking at social media and then maybe doing the occasional NPS survey. But I want to share a few other ways that you can be getting qualitative feedback from your community as well. So the first is in-app feedback, right? Giving your users the ability to share feedback directly within your app is crucial because it gives them an avenue other than an App Store review, potentially a poor review, where they can share feedback and voice their concerns. And this is especially critical during your beta programs or your dog fooding programs, right? Where you've got users that are super engaged, they're willing to try out the latest and greatest. You need to make sure that they've got a streamlined way to share feedback with you. Now, Instabug, we're actually one of the pioneers in this space, right? Back in 2016 when we launched, we sort of invented the shake to report or the screenshot to report that many apps are now replicating. The great thing about this is it gives users an easy way to report issues. And if you're using a tool like Instabug, we automatically capture what the user was doing up until that bug. So when you get that issue in your inbox or in your Jira, you know exactly how to reproduce the problem. Now, an additional method you can use from your users is through in-app surveys, right? And in-app is a key here, right? Because you're engaging with your users while they're still using your app. If you think about how people are doing this today, or how many companies are soliciting feedback when it comes to surveys, it's typically done through an email survey, right? Maybe you get a SurveyMonkey link in your inbox. By the time you get to that email, it's completely out of context. You don't remember what you were doing with the app. So by using an in-app survey, you can target users at the right time, prompt them for key feedback directly in the moment, and they're more likely to engage and provide that feedback. Now, I was actually with a customer of ours in Germany last week, and they shared a pretty cool concept that I thought is worth highlighting here. They're looking if users encounter an error in their app 2 or more times. So if I'm using the app and I see the same error twice or more, they're not just showing the error message. They're now prompting users to share feedback like what you see here. So instead of them, rage tapping and just giving up, they can actually provide feedback directly to the engineering team. Lastly, you still have App Store ratings and reviews, right? This is a pretty big source of feedback for many of you today. And this is a really important metric because more than 70% of users are reading reviews before they download a free app. And this is why we've now added it to the Instabug dashboard so you can compare and view your app ratings alongside those other critical metrics like your performance metrics and crash-free rate. So in the event that you end up seeing a review like this, where someone has maybe left a poor review and had a bad experience with your app, Instabug is now going to be able to give you a full session replay for that particular user, showing you if they had crashes, app hangs, any potential performance problems, and you'll have all the debug info to be able to find the root cause of that issue that ultimately led to that 1-star review. If you folks have used Instabug before, you'll know this is not new to us. With any bug reports, crashes, or performance issues, this is the level of detail that you get so you can quickly find the root cause of those issues. So now that completes the qualitative view, or the view into qualitative metrics, that you should be measuring, but this presents another problem. Instead of that single one metric that most teams are using today, crash-free rate, you've now got 15 different metrics I'm proposing that you look at. And it doesn't make sense that you'd look at all of these independently. And it doesn't make sense that you'd set a different target for each of those and then monitor those targets independently either. So that's why we've rolled this up to something that we're calling the AppDex score, right, or Application Performance Index. So it's a North Star metric that sums up those 15 separate metrics based off of targets that your team can set, and then it gives you one single metric that you can monitor. Essentially, you can treat this as your North Star metric. You can see it for your overall app, or if you're a fairly large team, we even give you the ability to monitor this on a per team or a per screen basis. The nice thing then is you're able to monitor this for each of your releases. Helps answer that question, are we actually incrementally improving, or is this build potentially worse than last week's or last month's release? And of course, like I mentioned here, you can compare it across the releases, and if you have a release manager team, this gives them the quick insights to answer that question of, is this a quality release? Should we be pushing it out to 100% of our users? Now, the other nice thing here is since we have all of this data in Instabug, you can also use this to control the rollout and release of your new builds. So if you start to see a particular release is doing well, you can automatically roll that out to your entire user base. Or if you see that maybe those quality metrics like crash-free rate and app launch time are not as good as you would expect, you can actually use Instabug to pause that release, preventing widespread adoption of a build that may not be great quality. A couple other highlights here. We've got automations that allow you to notify your team in Slack, right? So if the quality of your build or release drops, Instabug calls that release for you. We can drop a message in Slack and say, hey, version 2 that we pushed out this morning has automatically been paused. Your team then can quickly go into Instabug, start the investigation process based off of all the logs and insights we've provided to you. Now, it wouldn't be 2023 if we didn't have some mention of AI, so I want to share a little bit about how we're using AI to enable mobile teams to debug better. Typically, we hear that engineering teams are spending about 30 to 40% of their time debugging issues, and that's a lot of time. So one of the ways that we're making use of AI is to help your teams find the root cause of a crash faster, and of course, suggest potential fixes. Now, this is just a screenshot here. If you want to see a live demo, come on down to the booth. We can show it to you in action. And a second way we've started to make use of AI is through the app rating and review capability. So what we're doing is we're actually using AI to parse and scrape the reviews on your Play Store and then suggest trends or patterns in what your users are seeing and identify top areas or where your team should be focused. So that's everything from me today, folks. I would encourage you to come downstairs to our booth there if you want to explore some of the new capabilities. There's also a QR code up here if you'd rather check out the sandbox on your own. Drop a link in your Slack, share it with your team. The last thing I want to mention is if you want to see some of those AI insights about your own app, we have a tool that you can use. You just need your Play Store URL or bundle ID. Come on down to the booth there. There's a QR code you can scan, pop it in, and then we'll forward you folks an email report in about 2 minutes with those summary data.